Hey friends, I wanted to see if we can maybe chat a little bit today about a cool conversion you can do on your 1911 pistol. That is going to be the conversion to shooting 45 Super or 450 SMC. Both of them are functionally just about the same thing. They are slightly varied in their design. This is your standard 45 ACP round. This is just regular old reload, but it's within most spec. There's a 200 grain bullet that's traveling about 850 feet per second, right? So, that has somewhere in the 250 to 350 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. Now, muzzle energy is the amount of force that bullet can exert on a hard target. The higher level of muzzle energy, the more work that is performed by the bullet as it enters into the target. So if that number is higher, then ultimately what we can look at is more force from that bullet. And that can do one of two things. That can allow that bullet to penetrate deeper, or it can exert more force into the hollow point cavity of a bullet, allowing it to expand further and ultimately provide more damage on a hard target, or a soft target in some situations. So in order to do a conversion, we have to look at what the 450 SMC and the 45 Super will give you. Let's just say this is a 230 grain bullet going 850 feet per second. We could look at anywhere between 200 to 400 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, depending on, whatever. I'm just guessing in that number, so don't quote me on that. But what we can do is modify the inside of the case a little bit, create a little bit stronger brass geometry in here, use a little bit hotter primer, and pack more powder into this case, ultimately increasing the pressure behind this bullet and allowing the bullet to leave at a faster velocity. Faster velocity increases muzzle energy. So in this case, going to 45 Super gives us effectively the same pressure as a 10 millimeter, which is similar to a 357 Magnum, which ultimately will end up between 550 and 700 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. That's twice what this little fella can do. So you can look for companies like Double Tap, Buffalo Bore, and Underwood who load factory loadings for 45 Super. You do need to buy special brass, and you need to make sure that you're using the primers that are set to the loading standards for 45 Super or 450 SMC. Now this 1911 is a well-built 1911. This is a Springfield TRP, which is one of the best guns that they make off the shelf. One of the things that you need to consider, though, is that this gun is designed to shoot 45 ACP. If you were to shoot a higher degree of pressure out of this gun, it can have additional wear on the parts in this gun that are not designed to handle that same degree of pressure. There are pressure points in these guns that are designed to work under a very specific pressure, mainly the slide to frame. Here, where we have our barrel link and the slide stop here, ultimately can all be affected by the amount of recoil and the amount of force. So I'm going to show you a couple of modifications that you can easily do to convert your pistol to 45 Super. Our barrel is identical. It's the same one that's in this pistol, and so is our barrel bushing. They're nicely fit, and they don't need to be changed. There are some things that do need to be changed. This TRP has been converted to run a standard recoil spring or a standard recoil guide rod. Now what we can do is, this is one from Wilson Combat. It is a bulletproof, which is one of their machine steel guide rods, and it has a little notch here, which is good. And then ultimately you use a little buffer. You install it by just slipping it over the edge like this. Then what you can do is upgrade your pistol to this is a Nighthawk, but this is a forged steel slide stop. What that does is that will actually hold the barrel in place, because as this goes through the barrel link, energy is transferred like this when the barrel slides back. if you have a weak slide stop, it can actually crack this or break it, depending on the fitment of your pistol. So this is a part that absolutely needs to be upgraded. If you don't do anything else, this might be one of the things that you need to do. This buffer is extremely cheap. You can get a package of 6 of them for $3 or $4. This was about $45 through Nighthawk, and it doesn't match the pistol very well, but I'm okay with it. It is a nice piece, and it's a little bit extended beyond the factory MIM part. The next thing that you're going to do is upgrade your recoil spring. This one is a 21-pound spring. You can go all the way up to 24 pounds. There are some companies like DPM Systems who offer 460 Roland spring systems that can start between 20 and 21 pounds and go all the way up to 25 pounds. You don't need 25-pound springs for this. The 460 Roland is a gun destroyer. A 45 Super is not. So as long as you're using the combination of your buffer here and a 21-pound or higher spring, you can actually go a little bit lower, like 18. But that being said, it's not advisable. This gun should cycle just fine. So during this video, you've probably seen some clips of me showing you some of the things that are important to look at. But just remember, the conversion in this case is simply adding a 21-pound or higher, in my opinion. You can use 20, I guess, but just, use your discretion. The buffer here and a strengthened slide stop. Make sure that this is a forged part. I would highly recommend getting a forged part for this too. These aren't very expensive, maybe only $10 to $15. Also, though, make sure that if your gun does not have a very, strong setup here, I would consider having a barrel link made by Wilson Combat, EGW, Ed Brown, Nighthawk. These barrel links are important and they take a lot of stress. Ultimately, you might also want to consider changing the barrel link pin. I like to change the entire pin set to the drill bit pins from Wilson Combat or Nighthawk or EGW. They are really excellent upgrades, and they might only be $15. So something to consider. But there are some guns that may have less good barrel links. When changing barrel links, though, you need to be careful. I would consider buying the whole set from Wilson Combat. And ultimately, what I'd like, anyone to do is to consider looking at the whole set to make sure that you get the right length. So if you are going to change your barrel links, I recommend watching a few videos online and learning a little bit about going with the barrel link that fits your barrel fitment and lock up the best. Simply changing this around can really affect the reliability of your gun, as minute changes in the length of this link can cause problems. So go with the one that makes your gun function the best and lock up the tightest. However, going with upgraded strength on that part is necessary. This chamber can absolutely handle it. What we need to do, though, is just make sure that that it is going to work, function, and cycle. That mostly comes through here and through this buffer. Otherwise, you will have a really hard time controlling the recoil. Your magazine doesn't need to be changed at all because the exterior dimensions of the 450 SMC and the 45 Super are identical. What this gives you is 357 Magnum. That's the way I said it in that weird way. 357 Magnum power, anywhere between 550 and 600 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, maybe more. What I'm looking at in this, my carry is going to be Underwood 185 grain jacketed hollow point going 1,300 feet per second. That's quite a bit more than even a 10 millimeter can send a 180 grain. A 10 millimeter will send a 180 grain bullet down a 5-inch barrel at about 1,250 feet per second. That's most factory loadings. So sending a 185 at 1,300 is significantly higher. Bullets do not penetrate extremely deep with this, but they do unbelievable amounts of damage in the first 10 inches. So if that's something you want to consider, there's a pretty good chance of getting a one-shot stop when you increase the muzzle energy and the expansion of the bullet. However, if you decide that you want to, take a different philosophy and go for things like penetration and ideal expansion, there are factory loadings that might work for you. There are other loadings, though, in 45 Super that would work extremely well for things like woods protection. And so this can give you 357 Magnum, maybe even close to 41 Magnum. It's going to be less, but between 357 and 41 Magnum ballistic numbers and efficiency. And you can get hard cast bullets that can probably penetrate 4 to 6 feet of bone and tissue. So that's something to consider if you're dealing with things like bears and you'd like to have a semi-automatic pistol. Just remember the recoil is going to be substantial and it's going to be a very spicy round. And so follow-up shots will not be that fast. And if you decide that a revolver is better for you anyways, that's fine. This is just a great way, though, to have a gun that can shoot two very distinct styles of ammunition. One that is extremely high pressure, and then the one that is, very efficient and range friendly. So I hope this video gives you some information on what it's like to convert to 45 Super. Hopefully you enjoyed some of these videos of the big blasts. I have noticed, though, in comparing the Underwood to the Buffalo Bore was more stout. However, the Underwood seemed a bit more accurate in this gun. So the stoutness, is offset by the controllability of the Underwood, even though the ballistics seem to be about the same. Another thing is that the Buffalo Bore had a significantly lower flash. The Underwood had a very bright white flash out of the muzzle. If you're shooting at night or in pitch black conditions, that's something you may want to consider. I hope you're doing well. Appreciate your time for watching. Bye-bye.